Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to your first true PLC meeting. This summer, 13 of us were able to attend a 3-day conference and hear 16 speakers on the power of PLCs, and we have tried to consolidate the information and bring it here to Lake Mary. In your departments, you've just discussed what you think you already know about PLCs. The actual definition is they are composed of collaborative teams whose members work interdependently to achieve common goals for which members are held mutually accountable. So what does this mean? What are the benefits? Is it really going to produce results that we want and need here at Lake Mary? And absolutely, the data shows that it does take about 3 to 5 years to see the true results, but overwhelming amounts of data shows the power of PLCs when they are put into place properly. We don't have time to get into that today, but in the binder that you will get today in each of your PLCs, you'll find one example of a school with similar demographics to Lake Mary and the incredible results that they achieved. There's no evidence anywhere that shows a connection with a teacher working in isolation to improve student achievement. One of the most powerful quotes from the conference was from Rick DeFore, a PLC guru, who said, "We need to start thinking they're not my kids, they are our kids. Just because the schedule lottery placed them in my class versus your class shouldn't make that big of a difference in their success. We want to build a team mentality that we are taking care of all the students in that course in the whole school." DeFore talked about collective expertise overpowering individual expertise, and he brought up an interesting example about a practice of a successful law firm. Every Monday morning, all 5 lawyers sat at a round table and they took turns discussing their individual cases. Together, they came up with solutions and their success rate soared. So why don't we do that in schools too? Here's a couple of rhetorical questions for you to contemplate. Compare your answer against what you think your colleagues might answer. Are the tests that you give multiple choice or partial credit or something else? And how might that affect certain students that are better at one type than the other? How much homework do you assign each night compared to the other teachers you teach with? Do you ever offer a retest when student proficiency isn't what you want it to be? And do the other teachers do that? How do your students sit, groups, pairs, or rows? And how might that affect their engagement and achievement in your class? Do you ever offer any extra credit? Do you ever accept any late work? And when do you offer extra help? Before school, after school, during lunch? And how might that affect certain students that can't get there when you do? So, all of these questions lead us to the reality that we have been playing educational roulette with our students for a very long time. Our practices are so different that a student might actually fail or succeed based solely on which teacher they have. Now, a student failing does not mean you're a bad teacher, but the issue is that very same student might thrive in another classroom when our practices are so different from one another. The basic idea of PLCs is to open up a dialogue about what are the best practices. Today, we're going to establish norms within our PLCs that will guide us in doing so. I know a very common worry is that we are all so different, so how can we expected to all teach the same exact way? But our professional autonomy is not being touched. We all get to deliver instruction every day in our individual classrooms, and that's where the beauty of our differences will show. So what are we doing now? DeFore, he used an analogy. He said that many of us work in isolation, either by choice or that's how it's always been done. And he compared that to a single runner going at your own pace, on your own path, concerned really with only what's happening in your own classroom. Most of us here do collaborate at Lake Mary. However, DeFore compared that to a marathon. We're running side by side. We might talk and share materials, but still our only goal is really finishing ourselves. It doesn't affect one person if another falls behind. So PLCs have a team mentality. We're all needed to reach the goal, like in a rowing team. And at all high-performing schools, the main workers there are not individuals, but they are teams. They're interdependent, held mutually accountable, and they have shared goals. So, finally, there are 5 components to a PLC that we've broken it down for you. In your binders, you're going to find each one of these steps defined in more depth. It is Lake Mary's goal for every single PLC to be at least to step 3 by the end of this school year. After you guys read more about each of the steps, you're going to self-diagnose to see what step you are currently at. And some of us are going to be at step 1, some of us are going to be on step 5, and that's okay, as long as we are all at step 3, and that's totally possible. So number 1, we have to have common curriculum and planning, covering the same topics at roughly similar paces, and not only that, but getting together and sharing ideas of how we actually cover certain topics. Next, we need common assessments, and not only saying it's your turn, you write it and put in copies, but actually writing it in the same room with all members giving their feedback. When you give those assessments, having a common rubric where you make sure that the topics are actually weighted the same when you grade them. Analyzing results, coming together after you give an assessment, and what I learned is you don't actually use class averages. You pick a proficiency level and you discuss how many students did not reach that proficiency level, because class averages are basically pointless. Next and final step would be intervention and remediation. And this is where we're going to discuss this later, but sharing ideas on, well, where were your students stronger than mine, and how did you teach that, and how can I allow my students another opportunity to show me that they have learned this material. So again, all of these steps are more defined in your binders, but research has shown that a step 1 PLC and a step 4 PLC do not have a lot of difference in terms of student achievement. But when schools perform all 5, that is when the true growth occurs. So here's what we're doing now, and here are PLCs. I know that we are all overwhelmed and tired, and this just seems like one more thing to do, but it's definitely going to make our lives easier. And I know in my own classroom with my PLCs, I have seen really awesome results. So hope you have a wonderful year. Now you're going to break up into your PLCs that have been assigned. Obviously, if you're in more than one, you will need to meet with them in the next week to do what we're doing today. But you're going to discuss Chapter 9 and create your norms and turn them in to your administrators. So thank you very much. Have a good day.